Good morning, everybody. It is genuinely wonderful to be here, isn't it? And Nicki and I, well, we're chuffed to bits to be kicking off the day with you here today at BAFTA. We're going to start with a little rewind because we're going to first explain what the DNA of breakthrough brands is, and then we're hoping to inspire you by taking that a few steps further. Ultimately, our goal is to look at breakthrough growth from a different angle, that of mature brands, and find out what they do differently to bounce back and create breakthrough growth. We'll be showing you some new thinking. We'll be sharing some case studies, including hearing from someone who's done it, and we'll be giving you the secrets to how it's done. Are you ready? Right, let's dive in then, shall we? Okay. This story actually begins, as Amy and Jodie alluded to, last summer, when we shared our answers to the question that we'd been asking ourselves: what is different about brands that create breakthrough growth? And to get to those answers, we dug into our BrandZ dataset, the world's largest brand building data asset. That's made up of almost 20,000 brands, over 500 categories, and more than 50 markets. So empirically, we're talking pretty valid. Now, at the heart of BrandZ lies a simple framework about how a brand's power is built, based on 3 key levers of equity growth: being meaningful, meeting emotional and functional needs; being different, standing out as unique and leading the way, so something that could be felt intrinsically or extrinsically; and being salient relative to competitors, coming to mind quickly and easily when making a purchase decision. And using BrandZ valuations alongside brand equity data, we know that brands that deliver these 3 things are likely to grow at a much faster rate. In fact, brands who are strongly meaningful, different, and salient have 5 times the commercial brand value growth of brands who aren't. So when we asked ourselves, what is different about the brands that create breakthrough growth, we started answering that by looking at brands who have been new entrants or some of the fastest risers in the value BrandZ rankings that we create each year. Now, there was a lot we uncovered in that analysis, but one sentence captures the heart of what we found and built on the existing industry knowledge in this area. Difference makes the difference. Difference makes the difference to breakthrough brands. Breakthrough brands were disproportionately winning on different. They were disruptors, they were subverting norms, they were shaping categories and culture. Difference makes the difference to abnormal market returns. We shared our work with the Said Business School at Oxford University, who had told us that brand equity data was the missing link that can help investors better predict which stocks will give the best returns, taking their model's predictive ability to over 99%. And they found that how different a brand is perceived to be is the number 1 factor that helped them predict those abnormal market returns. And difference makes the difference to a brand's pricing power. What matters about a brand is very different if you're trying to drive margin and profit rather than just volume share. How meaningful and salient a brand is explains 80% of what makes someone want to buy it. But how meaningful and different a brand is explains 94% of how much someone is willing to pay for it. Ultimately, we outlined a dynamic that can be summarized like this: as a brand value chain. Meaningful salience helps your brand come to mind more easily, building mental availability, and that drives your demand and sales volume. But meaningful difference is what drives perceptions of being worth paying more for, and that's what drives your sales value, your margin. And what we highlighted here is that your brand's ability to add financial growth isn't determined just by sales. It's also determined by profitability. And that's a considerable advantage that simply had not been talked about enough. You need both. And it was clear from our evidence that it is difference that makes the difference. Now, you might be thinking, let's say you're currently working for a well-known, long-standing household name FMCG brand, one that perhaps has been around the block a bit. You might be thinking, if you want a slice of this breakthrough pie, the first place you need to look is on LinkedIn for a job with a startup. But we are here to say a massive, huge no to that. Mature brands can bounce back and break through. How do we know that? Well, first off, we've seen evidence of it in our Brand Z dataset. All the brands in Brand Z are classified into one of 10 typologies, which are defined by how meaningful, different, and salient they are. And we can plot them on a map, like this one, which shows how popular they are today, their demand power, and their likelihood of growth in the future, their future power. And each of these typologies has a name. Here they are. Now, because the Brand Z dataset spans so many years, we can look at whether brands travel around this map, and if so, in which direction. Now, there is a lot I could say about these typologies, and if you would like to know more, I will be in the bar afterwards if you'd like to chat to me for a couple of hours about this topic. But for now, I'm just going to share two things. The first is that there is dynamism and momentum in these typologies. Just under half the brands changed their typology over a period of 3 years. But second, popularity today doesn't equal guaranteed growth tomorrow. So what is the difference between the brands below this line, with less than 50% chance of growth, and above the line? Well, one of the things that separates them is that the brands above this line, those with stronger future power, have a tailwind. And that tailwind is something very particular about their equity, the strength of relationship they have with their addressable market. For those brands, their scores on those levers of equity growth, meaningful, different, and salient, they're not just strong. They're stronger than you would expect them to be, or stronger even than they deserve to be, given the brand's size today. They're higher than expected on how meaningful people think they are, on how salient they are, but especially for their perceptions of being different. What do I mean? Well, here we have two brands of mobile handset. Both are very different as far as consumers are concerned. Against a category average of 100, Brand A is over double that at 235, and Brand B is not doing too badly either at 145. But when we take into account what we'd expect them to score, given their brand size today, we see a different story. Brand B is scoring about where you'd expect, but Brand A has a whole bunch of extra difference. It's scoring way higher than you'd expect given the brand size. So we might think about this as excess difference. And when we looked again at our set of breakthrough brands from the original analysis, they also had excess difference. They were on average 31 points higher than expected levels. And on the right here, brands with some of the highest excess difference scores in the UK over the past couple of years. So as a reminder, these brands are scoring higher than you'd expect on seeming unique from the competition in some way and in leading the way, not following everyone else. And so yes, you've got your disruptors. You've got your Moon Cups, your Monzos, your Revolutes. But look again. M&S in grocery retail. Sky, Pets at Home. These are well-known, familiar, mature brands. So you're feeling perhaps a little more upbeat. Bouncing back and creating breakthrough growth for mature brands is possible. And we know that it's excess difference that separates the wheat from the chaff. So let's take this one step further and look at not just the what, but the how. Nicki, how do mature brands bounce back and create breakthrough growth?
Thank you, Adele. So let me tell you, but I think the good news is that it is possible to break that typical brand life cycle, and there is hope. But it's really important that the main message here is that the future is in your control, but you have to design for it. So I'm going to talk you through that, but really the important thing here is mature brands can bounce back because they design for difference. So thinking about that, we wanted to bring that to life. So the latter half of this presentation will show you the how. We've got some case studies, we've got some examples, we've got some expert quotes and opinions and data on how to really design for difference. But first of all, let's look at an example of the amazing brand Baileys. Now, they have been on a massive turnaround. They've been on a huge journey, and we've been really privileged to partner with them on that journey. I don't know if you remember, perhaps 5-6 years ago, it was the sort of brand that your nan drank at Christmas. But now, when you think about sort of Baileys today, you think about that massive turnaround that they've been on. And we've been really lucky enough for Sheila has put a video together for us that really helps you to start to understand the journey that they've been on and some amazing tips that she leaves you. So without further ado, let's hear from Sheila at Bailey's.
So that's not the language we use, but it definitely fits. We in Bailey's broke clear of our category and into a totally different new category, full of future possibilities and growth. And we really did do it based on the product truths of Bailey's. And this was the big unlock for us. New occasions, new consumers, and new moments. So we took a step back. We talk to our consumers, and when they're enjoying Bailey's and they talk about it as a multi-sensorial, delicious liquid, and they really talk about it as a real treat, there were lots of ums and ahs. This is where part cake, part booze, pure pleasure was born. And this is the treating strategy that underpins all the work we did. And it basically gave us a different role in people's lives. So gone from the small, tight cream liqueur occasion into all the times that people want to treat themselves. After dinner, over ice cream, in your coffee, people find lots of fabulous ways to treat themselves with Bailey's. And we found ourselves in this vibrant treating space, really dynamic, full of energy and playfulness. And we created an exciting, vibrant semiotic space in this world, which drove our brand world, which we have this beautiful brand book that is full of color and energy and impulsive, playful moments. This then drove our creative work, and you'll have seen that we don't show up just at Christmas now. There's lots of fabulous activations during the summer, at Easter. We had our wonderful witches campaign there at Halloween, where we had UK drag queens dressed up, enjoying their fabulous cocktails. And we're sponsoring the Eurovision Song Contest coming up soon. So you can see it has really unlocked a whole new role that we can play in people's lives. And this is true also in our innovation space. We tap into local cultures and local flavors. We have Mexican churros, we have Sakura Peach, Bailey's Sakura Peach in China. Consumers just love them. And so this new treating strategy really has driven such a fantastic new wave of growth. And we're looking forward to a delicious future. Excuse the pun. So I suppose my advice would be, we're all very, very busy with our heads down, working away, trying to optimize the current plans. And sometimes we're too inward focused. So to take a step back and look up and beyond, think of the future possibilities that the brand could explore and the different trajectory that the brand might take. Secondly, be tuned into the product intrinsics. I've explained already how part cake, part booze was such a massive unlock for us and has launched us into this exciting treating category space. We also are part of a big drinks company, so we have had to test and learn our way through this. We have to uncover new exciting spaces like our semiotic space, the different occasions, and really understand and learn as we go along. So really test and learn has been a very, very helpful tool and way of working that we have done. Finally, I would say, Bailey's is in 154 countries, so ensuring that we have this connected approach. We have a very clear, succinct positioning. We have a very clear brand world and semiotic space. And so we have really, really clear guardrails about what Bailey's is and what Bailey's isn't. And that has enabled all the marketeers right across the globe to be able to activate fantastic, exciting plans for Bailey's and really connect with the local culture while still keeping a really consistent look and feel and a consistent approach to the Bailey's strategy.
So I hope you agree, it's a really amazing story. I love how she says look up and beyond, how they've reframed the way that their products fit into people's lives. So you see it is really possible to design for difference. And their success is actually mirrored in our brand Z data. You see that their scores on communicating creatively have gone up by 15. Difference is actually up by 14 across a period between sort of 2014 and 22. Excess difference is +9. So they are also demonstrating that sort of the excess difference. But a huge part of the Bailey's story and a big contributing factor to the results that Sheila talks about is the role of innovation, how brave and varied their innovation was. Between 2014 and 22, their Innovate Meaningfully scores went up by 15 points, which meant they were below average, and now they are significantly exceeding the average. So let's dig deeper into the role of innovation, because it is fundamental when we think about driving for difference. So we've written an entire booklet about innovating in a meaningful and different way. And you can collect it from us at Meet at the Bar later in the Innovate Differently section. But there are 4 key principles. I couldn't summarise the entire book, but I've attempted to, into 4 main points. But there's a lot more richness and depth into the booklet, so please come and get it. But I thought I'd do it through quotes from experts and people that we work with. So it really brought it to life. So it wasn't just me standing here giving you a principle. Actually, we brought it to life through the sort of different quotes. The first one is about brand centricity. You need to build from strong foundations, and you need to reframe as necessary, as Sheila talked about. And you need to consider the impacts of your innovation, not only on the short-term sales, but your long-term brand equity and your long-term growth. And actually, this is a really nice quote. I did a podcast with Shafiq from Halion recently, and it sums it up nicely. If your brand strategy is clear about where your growth is going to come from, your innovation will be more sustainable and make solving the need more straightforward. And you see that Sheila talked about that as well, having that clear strategy, reframing that strategy. So that's that first principle around making sure that you're brand centric, that your innovation is fit for your brand and you're building from those strong brand foundations. The second point is around strategic innovation. Now, not all innovations are good for brands, as we've said, but you really want to be focusing on innovations that make a difference. A new need, a new occasion, brand stretch, category growth, rather than new news for new news' sake. And I've picked this quote from Les, but in actual fact, our world panel data says the same thing, in fact, that actually, if you're not careful, innovation, not only is it hard, it can be detrimental to your brand. But the more radical the innovation, the bigger the boost in effectiveness. Minor innovation is worse than no innovation at all. I think that sums it up really nicely. Now, this doesn't have to be massively disruptive, but it has to be different, and I think that is the important point there. The next point is around having a learning mindset. And again, Sheila talked about testing and learning. And in actual fact, this is put beautifully by my colleague Barbara in a recent podcast that I did with her. Test and learn is so powerful. It's really important for me to learn in real life, gaining real insights from consumers in real time, in real situations. And I think she puts that sort of so beautifully, the idea that it really is about testing and learning. And the learning part is really important in that, because we all do a lot of testing, but do we do a lot of learning along the way, building up our confidence and momentum in that innovation as it develops? Finally, there's 2 parts to this idea of executing effectively. There's 2 parts to this. Not only do you have to ensure you execute your innovation well, you've put all this hard work and effort in, so it's really important that you execute and you put effort behind it. But there's nothing worse than launching, and I call it launching and sort of leaving rather than launching and loving. And on that, building on that point around a learning mindset, it's really important to continue that journey out into market, continue to learn how your consumers are reacting, responding, not just the financials, but what actually is your innovation, how are people receiving it? And this is put beautifully by my colleague Kate at Diageo. Having a launch and learn mentality is essential to optimise the chances of long-term success. Even if we fail, we have this biggest opportunity to learn. But innovation doesn't just mean product innovation. I take the broadest version possible of innovation to include services, but also experiences as well. So this next example really helps you to see the breadth of that, how you're sort of moving just beyond thinking about sort of innovation to think about the experience and everything associated with it. So this is an example from McDonald's. And these are their scores sort of building up. These are their Brandsy sort of excess scores. Excess difference, we've talked about that already, plus 10 points. But there are some other cues as well in here. Shaking things up, being a bit disruptive, well-designed products and services, meeting needs, so being meaningful. So it's really important to think about it in its breadth. So let's look at what they've done that have given them that breadth of success and the role that innovation in its broadest sense has played. They've innovated to meet new needs. So there's the Veggie Bites and McPlant. They've got new occasions as well. They brought people back in to have a different occasion, to have a coffee moment in their restaurants. They've opened new routes to market quite quickly, but they also have innovated their experience. You have a better and faster experience on the app, but also you have a better experience in store as well. So they've completely sort of thought about it and they've designed for difference. But it's not just innovation. I'm going to hand back to Adele, who's going to show you that there are some other levers that McDonald's have really pulled to help them get to this great place and design for difference.
Indeed I am. Now, McDonald's had loads of good ideas that stretch their range and their routes to market, but there is another dimension here, as Nicki says. Something we're increasingly investigating here at Kantar, the role that experience plays in brand building. Now, as Daniel Kahneman said, we don't choose between experiences, we choose between memories of experiences. So the memories we create are a powerful part of the associations we hold about brands in our heads. But it doesn't stop there. Our impression of the experience we're having is coloured by the brand as it exists in our head. Brains will sparkle and fizz differently in an MRI when people drink something labelled Coca-Cola versus generic cola, even if the two liquids they're drinking are exactly the same. Brands and branded experiences are looped in a symbiosis. The experiences feed the brand memories, affecting our attitudes towards it, and the brand frames the experience through rational and emotional expectations already associated with it. And McDonald's understood this symbiosis really well. And this isn't just about lots of close-ups of burgers. The infamous Edgar Wright eyebrows ad from earlier this year is just as good an example, in my opinion. Now, ultimately, McDonald's and their partners achieved really incredible results, and they shared some of their important wisdom. We hope that, instead of unnecessarily accepting a future of premature plateaus and market share anxiety, you, too, might just pick a simple plan, put your faith in the building of your brand, and promise to always stay hungry. Now, they, like Sheila earlier, may not have used the exact language, but goodness me, did they design for difference. So what can we now conclude about how brands can design for difference to bounce back? Well, first, mature brands can aim to punch above their weight when it comes to their brand equity, and especially their difference. And we might think about the idea of excess difference a little bit like we think about excess share of voice. If you can exceed and outperform your brand size and be perceived to be not just different, but more different than you have any business being, you're creating a strong foundation for growth. So mature brands can design for difference when they reach for excess. Mature brands can also design for difference by disrupting, as Nicki said. And that doesn't just mean creating new products. That means shaping the category, upending norms in experiences or routes to market, and of course, creatively. And like Sheila said, what this takes is to look up, look out, and beyond, to be fully market-oriented. Now, disrupt can feel like a big word, but it doesn't have to be big. In 2021, Warburton's had one of the top 10 biggest selling new products in the UK because they sliced a pita bread differently to make it easier to fill. You can design for difference by adopting a human-centric approach, which helps you know when and how to change to stay relevant. In other words, when and how to reinvent. But reinventing needs to be balanced with something else. Yes, you do need to know when and how to change to stay relevant, but you also need to know when and how to stay the same so that you maintain those shared and enduring associations that your brand holds. McDonald's brought all sorts of new ideas to market, but they remained true to themselves. And we can think about this as remaining fresh and contemporary while weirdly making it feel like there's really nothing changing at all. Now, Bailey's also reinvented, but did they lose any of that quintessential Baileysness in all of that evolution? Well, let's find out. Here's a whole range of brand assets that they created during the Pursuit of Pleasure campaign, including ads and bottles and social media posts, that kind of thing. They're currently scattered across this elliptical map, where each of the colours represents different expressions of consumers' emotive needs in the category. The question is, do all of these different assets use similar codes? Do they hang together coherently, exemplifying the art of evolving yet staying the same? Well, we asked our Wizzy AI bot what it thought. And indeed, they do. And we're increasingly seeing that brands who can execute in a way that is different to the competition, authentic to themselves, but consistent across time and touch point, are more different. So the final thing you can do to design for difference is to balance being human-centric in your approach with being brand-centric, to master the art of evolving yet staying the same. In other words, knowing how and when to reinforce. So where does all of this leave us? Well, first, even mature brands can bounce back and create breakthrough growth. Second, there's a blueprint for how. And third, you can close that LinkedIn app and get back to work. Because there is no predetermined destiny for your brand. If you reach for excess and you reinvent and you reinforce, then you will define your destiny, because you will be designing for difference. Thank you very much.